harm on local marine life, some impact on fishing patterns, but it's seen as like a potential form of renewable energy that will be sustained along in the future. But I'm here to speak today using Venezuela as an example about how maybe climate change will negate the impacts of this renewable energy source. So first thing I'm going to talk about is Venezuela's energy portfolio and explain what the current infrastructure is like for generating electricity, the cause of Venezuela's current energy crisis, what this energy crisis currently looks like today, and then potential solutions to this energy crisis, electricity crisis. So Venezuela generated about $123 billion kilowatt hours of energy in 2013. 65% of that came from hydropower, and 35% from fossil fuels. Most of their hydroelectric facilities are located along one river. And specifically, there's one dam, the Guri Dam, that generates 44% of Venezuela's hydroelectric power. But the installed generation capacity hasn't kept pace with electric consumption. So consumption's increased 50% in the past, from 2003 to 2012. But capacity only expanded 28%, and so the energy, like electricity, is really tight. So one of the causes, I think, of this current energy crisis is El Nino. It's a phenomena characterized by the warming of ocean water near the equatorial Pacific. It affects wind currents, precipitation, and amongst other things, and so it can cause increased precipitation in some places like Ecuador and coastal Caribbean, Latin America. It can also cause extreme drought and reduced precipitation in some locations, as in the case of Venezuela. And so this is the Guri Dam, the one I mentioned. That's Venezuela's largest producer of hydroelectric energy. It's one of the largest dams, hydroelectric dams in the world with respect to energy production. But it's currently dried up in a lot of places. You see a lot of brown spots, and that's a result of the current drought in Venezuela. And it's at a historic low of 797 feet. Another cause of this electricity crisis is Venezuela's poverty rate. Right, so when oil reached historically high prices, there is a lot of money coming to the government, and a lot of that money was devoted to social programs. So, and the effect of those social programs reduced the poverty rate. So it went from about 50 to 30%. It's one of the most rapid reductions of poverty historically in any country in this short period of time. And the result of this reduction in poverty was an increased ability to purchase appliances that consumed a lot of electricity, and so so people were able to purchase things like refrigerators, air conditioners, hair dryers, and like I said, that led to an increased consumption. But the current infrastructure for producing electricity couldn't keep up with the increased electricity consumption. Another reason, like I was saying, that Venezuela is currently facing an electricity crisis is that it's the demand has surpassed the capacity to produce electricity. Right, so it generates about, all their infrastructure generates about 18,300 megawatts per day, but the need is around 19,300 megawatts per day. And so this leads to intermittent electricity and just blackouts in various parts of the nation. This is actually a picture from like a household in an article published last week. It's just blacked out completely. And so after there was a similar drought in 2009, 2010 in Venezuela, and after the drought ended, Hugo Chavez responded by investing billions of dollars into improving electrical generation infrastructure within the city. But not much has happened. Some of the reasons were corruption, mismanagement. I think $500 million of that money just went missing, and it's just poor execution. And so while this money was invested in in the electricity infrastructure to try to meet the increasing consumption, increasing demand, wasn't enough to provide to meet the energy needs of the Venezuelan residents. And so this focus on hydropower within Venezuela has made it vulnerable, right? So I think at one point around 3/4 of the energy in Venezuela was provided by hydropower. But when you don't diversify your energy portfolio, when one aspect of your energy portfolio fails, your whole country isn't having a crisis. And so I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing this crisis today. So I think last week, the Venezuelan president announced that government workers would have 2-day work weeks and a move to save electricity. Before it was like, I think it was like, he extended Easter holiday to try to save some more money, but last week he reduced it to 2 days, and so that's 20% of the entire workforce that works for the government. They're only working Mondays and Tuesdays during the week. He changed the time zone, I guess, to take advantage of more daylight hours in the nation. President advised women they should stop using hair dryers because they generate so much electricity. In 10 states, the citizens are having mandatory shutoffs for 4 hours a day for 40 days. So this is happening like the 10 most populous states of Venezuela. They're mandatory government electricity shutoffs. And the poverty rate has increased in light of this economic recession that we're seeing, because oil prices have reached historic lows, right? So the government's losing so much money. And so the poverty rates, they were 30 in 2012, now they're between 70 and 75%. There's a lot of political tension. The government will point to El Nino as the cause, while the populists will often point to the government's failure to diversify its energy portfolio as the cause of the current conditions. And this is, like I said, this is in Venezuela. So solutions. So I told you they already had the drought back in 2009, 2010. Hugo Chavez enforced rolling blackouts. As we've seen now, they're not working. Reduced industrial production, that's happening now. And then enforced steep fines for overconsumption. That's the only thing that hasn't been implemented now, but I don't know if it would help that much anyway. There's an option to use biomass as fuel. For my senior design project, we designed an ethanol amine plant in Venezuela. And we found that the state of Uruguay had a high sugarcane production, and so you can use bagasse, which is a byproduct of sugarcane production, as a biofuel and generate electricity that way. And as one of the government officials said, one of the best things they can do is pray for rain, because I think there's rainfall projected for around now or in early May, and they're really banking on that to help them solve this electricity crisis. I'll now open up the floor for questions.
I'm at 9%. I should be okay.
Well, that was terrifying. So, do you think that that if the poverty rate stays high for a while, that it will lead to an eventual decay in the amount of demand for electricity, or do you think once people have bought all those things that it's kind of locked in?
Yeah, I was like, once they've already bought all the appliances, so I don't think them being poor for a little bit will take away, the need, their perceived use of these appliances that they already have.
What are they doing for market signals for reducing electricity use? What does electricity cost there? I know there's a big issue that they make petroleum products and gasoline and diesel so subsidized. Or is electricity at a fair market rate, and is that giving a good signal to people that they need to cut back?
So I can't speak to I don't know the cost of electricity yet, but I know that the government, like you said, heavily subsidizes fuel and electricity for the citizens so much So I think the price of gasoline increased 6,000%, like last week, right, or something. But it's only, you can still fill up a tank for less than a quarter, right? So it's very heavily subsidized within the nation, and that's a really big cost that the citizens actually really want to keep. I think in the late 90s, there was a move to remove some of those subsidies, and there were like massive protests, violent protests all over the country.
I suspect you may be right. Did anyone Google it? So Ryan, I thought you'd be on it.
Thank everybody for good presentations.